and welcome to a new video. I am actually doing another tag video because I actually saw this on Crystal Bookish Life's channel, but it was originally created by Bree from Falling for Romance. I will tag both of their information below. And I had to do this tag because it just looked like so much fun, and I love putting more romance content on my channel just because it's what I've been really enjoying, especially this past year. So I am doing the romance reader tag. Let's just get right into it. So the first question is, what is your romance origin story? Or how did you come to read romance in the first place? Or what was your first romance novel? So this is an interesting question because I always read YA romance, or at least I liked the fantasy YA series that included more romance. I didn't read a lot of the YA romance like Sarah Dessen or like other authors like that. I didn't get into that. I didn't really like contemporary and YA very much. But I loved the romance aspect of fantasy novels, and that was always my favorite part. So I read a lot of those, like Twilight and City of Bones and like that sort of stuff. I really gravitated more towards that. And then I started reading adult romance. I had read a couple of Nicholas Sparks in like high school, middle school. I didn't love them, but I liked them. And then just a couple years ago, I think in 2018, maybe 2017, I read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I'm pretty sure that was my first adult romance read. I tried looking at my Goodreads and I think that's the first one. Obviously fell in love with it. I just reread it a couple months ago. It's still one of my favorites. It's such a fun read. And then the first historical romance I read, which was 2018, I believe, was The Highland Guardian by Amy Jarecki, and I bought it literally as a joke. Like, my friend and I were like, let's just get one of those silly books with like the shirtless man on the cover and just read it like as a joke. And that, in the bookstore we were at, it was a used bookstore, I had 2 copies of that, so we picked it and we're like, it's not gonna be good, like we're just buying it and reading it as like for fun. But then like we both really liked it and like it really held up, and that was a really good book. I have another book of hers I should read. But like in my head, because society looks at romance, they really look down on it and they don't take it seriously, and so I didn't either. And I was like, this is going to be silly, the girl is going to be super desperate and annoying, the guy's going to be overpowering and all this, but it was nothing like that. The main character, the heroine, was so strong-minded, so independent, and the hero was very caring, and he was a gruff character. It was a Highlander romance, so he was, a bit gruff, but he was really caring, and he really just wanted to take care of her, and it was nothing like I expected, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I didn't start reading more historicals until this year, but I really fell in love with the adult romance world, especially like contemporaries. I read like the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, which aren't my favorite, but I still liked them, and I no longer just make a joke out of them. Obviously they're not the best written books, but I enjoyed them and they gave me entertainment, which for me is what reading is about. I don't care as much about lessons learned and nonfiction and all that. I just want to be entertained, and I really liked those. And I've read a lot of those like cartoon type cover books like Christina Lauren, and I've read a couple others, and Alicia Ray, I've read a few of hers. The Chloe Brown book I read this year or last year. There's lots, those sort of cover, if you know what I'm talking about, if you're a romance reader, and I got into those. And then this year I tried a historical romance. I tried literally just this past summer actually, Joanna Shoup's book, The Rogue of Fifth Avenue, and absolutely fell in love with that one again because it's a super strong, independent woman in the early 1900s in Gilded Age New York, and she gets what she wants because she's not afraid to push the boundaries of her historical setting. And what I also like a lot about the historicals that I have read and completely fallen in love with is that often these modern day authors are given the opportunity to push the boundaries of a historical setting and what was expected of women with the knowledge that they have today, and let these women be a lot more wild and just exciting and independent and just vibrant, that I'm sure there were obviously women just like that in the past, but they're able to make it clear and bright and just so much more dynamic in these stories and apply some like modern values to a historical setting, and I absolutely adore it. Number 2, if you could be the heroine in a romance novel, who would be the author, and what's one trope you insist be on the story? That's a really good question. I didn't read any of these questions to think of answers beforehand. Probably Joanna Shupe, because one, I love the Gilded Age New York setting kind of more than like the European setting. And I just think it would be really, really incredible. She really knows how to write a story, and she writes such fierce characters, such diverse characters, and having different type of women. So the series that I have completed, the Rogue of Fifth Avenue and The Prince of Broadway, and the other title that I can't remember, it follows 3 sisters, and they're each so different, and they are so obviously, they seem so real, and I really feel like she could write such an interesting story, and she writes such good heroes. I love them all so much. All the heroes are more like kind of bad guys, but they're actually like secretly soft, I guess. And I really, really love that. I think I would probably be most like the 3rd sister, the youngest sister. She's very quiet. She just wants to dedicate her life to helping other people, and she falls in love with the crime lord of the city, and it was just so good. It's so good. I would absolutely love for her to be in charge of my romance story. A trope that I would want, I don't know, there's so many. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm an absolute sucker for the one bed trope. And that doesn't come up in historicals as often, but it's just so good. It's so funny to me. I don't know why, but it's just so good. And another one that doesn't really fit into the historical setting, but maybe more paranormal or fantasy. I love a vampire story. I love like a feeding vampire. So whether the hero or heroine is the vampire, like one of the City of Bones books does it with Simon and Izzy. I think Crave does it too by Tracy Wolff. I'm an absolute sucker, pun intended, for a vampire having to feed on the love interest. So if that could be somehow fit into my Gilded Age New York historical romance setting, that would be great. Number 3, what is a romance you've read this year that you want more people to read? First off, not that this video is just, you know, Joanna Shupe fangirling, but literally anything by Joanna Shupe. If you like romance and you haven't read anything by her yet, please do. But the other one is How to Dance with a Duke by Amanda Collins, and I've actually talked about this quite a few times on my channel already, but I just love it so much. It is so good. It involves like a sort of more educational setting, I guess. She wants to study archaeology, and she teams up with this other man and they pretend to like be engaged, so we've got a fake engagement thing going on because she needs a husband to be able to get into the archaeology club of men. I don't know what they are, and he wants help solving his brother's disappearance. She kind of has access to that because his brother went missing on her father's expedition, so she helps him with that, and he's going to help her get into the club so she can do some archaeological studies and also help her father, who recently had a stroke. So it's such a good book, so good, so steamy, and I really, really loved the characters and their chemistry. It was a little bit of hate to love, not really, they just kind of bickered, and it was great chemistry between them, and I really liked that they pretty quickly realize their feelings for each other, and they have to cope with that while trying to solve this really intense mystery and figure out what they're going to do with their lives, and it's just so good. It's so good, and I really want to read more books by her, but I feel like I haven't heard anyone ever talk about her or this book, so I definitely recommend it. Number 4 is, what is your favorite romance subgenre, and what subgenre have you not read much from? I think my favorite, I guess, would be historical, and then there's so many subgenres within historical, but I definitely think I prefer historical over contemporary, because while there's a lot of contemporary books that I have read and really loved, you know, the sort of cartoony cover ones, I do think I just like historical a little bit better. don't know which subgenre specifically in historical I like, other than I really do like the Gilded Age. And then I did really like having like an educational academic type part to it, like in How to Dance with a Duke. So something more like that. I like when the heroine especially has a very strong passion for something, and I really like it to be an educational thing or like some sort of something like that. Like, I don't think I would care a lot about a heroine who really likes to paint. Like, that's because I have literally no interest in stuff like that. I like to see a heroine who's interested in academics in some way, so like archaeology, science, nursing, healing, biology, that sort of stuff. Like, I just started My Fake Rake by Eva Leigh, and she's really into like evolution and animals and that sort of science and more like archaeology stuff. So I like the woman that the term is blue stocking. It means an intellectual or literary woman. It's a Victorian word. I don't see it used a lot in the romance community, but like I've seen it a couple times, and I really, really like that when the woman is very academic, and I think it's just because I relate to her more, and it just makes for generally a more interesting story. I don't really want to hear about the heroine's tea parties. Not to generalize what women did in those times, but they threw a lot of like, it was a lot of social gatherings and like just like keeping your social standing and stuff, and I find that really boring. I want a woman who rebels from the normal things of society and does something she's interested in. A subgenre that I have not read a lot of is paranormal romance. In fact, I don't think I've read a single one, but I would really like to. I have read like fantasy novels and some other things, but usually in the YA genre, and I've read Crave recently. I don't know if that sits in YA or NA or whatever, but I would really like to read more paranormal romances. They had the paranormal readathon a couple of weeks ago or months ago, and I wanted to participate. I just literally didn't have the time with school, but I would like to try some paranormal romances. If there's any that you really like and you're like a big paranormal fan, definitely comment some down below, because I could use recommendations, because I have literally no idea where to start. There's a lot. I feel like JD Ward, I can't remember her name. She's the author I've seen the most for paranormal, but I would like to try anything. I do love vampires the most though. Who is one of your auto-buy romance authors? You will not be surprised to hear that it is Joanna Shupe. I feel like this whole video is just me fangirling about Joanna Shupe, but she is definitely my auto-buy author. I haven't experienced enough romance authors to, I think, really just have a long list of auto-buy authors, but she is for sure one of them. I have read 4 or 5 of her books in the backlist, and I have loved every single one. Another one that might not be auto-buy, but at least like auto try it out on the library app, is Maisie Yates. I've read 2 of hers, and 2 or 3, and I have absolutely adored both of them. She writes really good like cowboy contemporary romances, and I've really enjoyed those. There aren't many authors that I've read multiple books of yet, but like there's a lot of authors I've heard recommended a lot, like Lisa Kleypas, and to the point where like I would probably auto buy it just because I've heard so many good things about it. Number 6, how do you typically find romance recommendations? I 100% go to BookTube. I follow a lot of romance YouTubers, and I usually go to them for recommendations. Sometimes maybe Instagram, like I'll go check their Instagrams instead. Actually, Falling for Romance or Brie is one of the people I would look for more contemporary recommendations. Jess from Peace Love Books is someone I would go to for historical a lot, but other stuff as well. Crystal Bookish Life, who I saw this tag on her channel, I definitely would go to some recommendations from her too. She has a Joanna Shupe that she recommended that I want to read so badly, hopefully in the new year. And there's a lot of other YouTubers. I will literally link some of my favorites down below. There's Lacey, there's a girl who I can picture in my head but can't remember her name. I'm not good with names, but there's a lot of booktubers that I will go to and watch and look for recommendations. There's Avery Love Books. There's just so many that I can't think of them all, but that's kind of predominantly what I read and what I watch right now, just because that's what I want to read and watch, so I usually will go to BookTube for recommendations. What is an upcoming romance release you are excited for? I don't really have many on my radar. I know Joanna Shupe is coming out with one in the beginning of 2021, I believe. It's got a yellow cover, so obviously I'm excited for that. And then there's also a book that was just recently released that is a compilation of like short stories, and it's got Eva Leigh, Joanna Shupe, other authors I can't remember, but it's called The Duke I'd Like to F. We all know what that F word fits in. And I really, really want to read that. That was just recently released. So that is one of my most anticipated books to like buy and check out. Number 8. What is one misconception about romance you would like to lay to rest? I kind of already touched on this earlier, but I really don't like the image that romance gets, that it's not serious or it's not worth reading because it's not literary fiction. I really don't like that idea. And I watched this documentary about the romance book industry. I will link information about it below. I think it's called Love Between the Covers or something. I highly, highly recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime if you have that. It's so interesting, and I think the reason romance as a genre has been dismissed for so long is because it's predominantly written by women and it's predominantly read by women. And so for so long it's been ignored and sort of put off as not important as a form of sexism in the reading world, publishing industry, that sort of thing, because these are stories about women getting what they want. Not every story is, you know, just about a woman. There are male-male romances too, but predominantly it is about women, and because it's about women getting what they want, possibly having the power in a relationship, or just getting a happy ending, people dismiss it as unimportant because they think you should be reading something more prestigious or something equally ridiculous, like a word. Like, it's not The Great Gatsby or a John Steinbeck novel, which gag me, so boring. Like, I think people just don't take it seriously because it's just a story, and it's a happy story. But that doesn't mean it can't pack an important punch or have an important message or change someone's life. Like the people who walk around saying 1984 changed their life, like, please, come on. But like, this year, for example, has been an incredibly hard year for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people who, online anyway, who have turned to romance books because you're guaranteed that HEA, the happily ever after, and I think it's really important to let yourself have that. Why not read a book you know is going to have a happy ending and have that comforting feeling, and it just makes you happy. And that's one of my biggest problems with some of the reading community in general, are the people who insist you need to read these really important, life-changing books. Like, I can't think of a lot, but like classics, or even like modern classics, but they're really serious and like cover really serious topics and stuff. I don't want to read that, and I'm probably not ever going to read that. I don't want these serious, like, sad books. I want to read something that's entertaining and that essentially probably has a happy ending. Like, I still read fantasy books, and those aren't always guaranteed a happy ending, but they're entertaining. I don't want a book that's just about like digging deeper and learning about the world or learning about myself, like self-help books or whatever. I just want a book that entertains me and that I like to read, and I think a lot of people dismiss romance because they think that's not important. But books are just like any other media. They are to be entertained. And it's just like why I would pick, you know, a comedy movie or, you know, a rom-com, something like that, over like some really serious war movie that I'll not like at all. So I think people need to be more open-minded and just let people read what they want to read. And like I said, I am not exempt from this. I did used to really look down on romance because but I looked at it differently because I thought none of the characters would have substance, or like I was afraid it was very like anti-feminist, I guess. I don't know if that's the way to explain it, but I didn't think any of the women in these books would be strong or like good example, I guess. But they are some of the strongest female characters I've ever read. So I really, really like that aspect of it now, and I think if some people would just try romance and get their nose out of the air, they would actually really enjoy it. Number 9 is, who's the most recent romance reading content creator you came across that you'd like to shout out? So I kind of already answered this, but I watch a lot of romance booktube. Like I said, I will compile a list of YouTubers I really like and put it in the description with links, just because I'm absolutely terrible at remembering names. I'm sorry. But there's a lot I really like. I like Jess from Peace Love Books. She is probably my go-to. She's one of the first romance channels I started watching pretty exclusively. There's more that I like. I like Avery Loves Books. I like Crystal. Haley in Bookland, she's one of the bigger YouTubers. She does read romance occasionally, more like contemporary romances, but there's a lot, and like I said, I'm absolutely terrible with names, so I'll look through my YouTube subscription and I will link below the people that I watch the most frequently, because I do really love connecting with romance readers online, because I think we have created such a really great community online. So I feel like we really band together as a romance community, and I've really enjoyed becoming a part of that community. So that was my get to know the romance reader tag. I really enjoyed making this and answering these questions. It has really meant a lot to me to sort of become a bigger part of this community. I still feel like I'm just like a small voice in the corner, but I really like it here. I love reading these books, and I just feel like this corner of the book internet area is just so kind and accepting. Like there isn't like big drama, or like no one's mean to each other, and no one judges others for what books they want to read, because I think in BookTube that was one of my bigger problems, is sometimes like there's a couple channels whose whole purpose is to just like hate read books, and that I find that really upsetting, because what if that's someone else's favorite book? And so, which has happened to me, but I really like that in the romance community it's much more accepting. You get to read whatever you want to read, and everyone is supportive of that, and I just really like it here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you consider subscribing and watching all my videos this month. I have a lot of things I'm really excited for in December, like I said. So like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!